Hi there, my name is Jim Turner, and I am going to do another powder shake. So what I got here is I got the sugar. I don't buy the powdered sugar from the store because it's got starch. I like everything that I do to be as organic as possible. So I make my own powdered sugar. So what I'm going to be doing is making some fresh powdered sugar, because if you make fresh powdered sugar and then you put it in a container, you leave it for a certain amount of time, so eventually it's going to become like a rock, right? Because sugar maintains about an 18% um, sugar content, moisture content. So, it's, yeah, so these are dried granules. You turn them into a powder. It opens up the moisture that's, you know, in those granules, and then it just sticks. And that's why they add the starch to, powdered sugar, so that it doesn't clump. So starch free for my bees, because starch can actually upset their stomach, maybe cause some dysentery. I've seen it where it caused so much dysentery in a hive for folks who do powder sugaring that there's poop all along the front of the hive. They're just coming out going, oh, they're relieving themselves all over the hive. Typically, they'll relieve themselves inside the hive, and then it'll dry, and then the other girls, um, Sue left her stuff here again, and the other girls carried it away, right? So yeah, so all the like the queen and the nursing bees, they go inside the hive, and it drops down the bottom. But what's cool for my girls is they don't have to carry that crap out. What happens with my girls is that when they go, I've got a bottom screen board, and I only got a space between the screen board and the wood floor of about three-quarters of an inch. So it's not very wide depth from the screen to the actual wood bottom board, but actually, instead of the wood, this is my bottom board, right? So I sit this over on top of a board that's the base of my hive, and that becomes where all their poop drops. So when all their poop drops, I remember when I first designed this last year, and I pulled it out and says, what are all those little egg-looking things? What are those little brown things? It took me a little bit to realize, oh, that's bee poop. I thought it was something else laying eggs in there, right? Some other critter in there infesting my hive. Nope, that's their poop. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is I am going to redo pull my panel out that's in there. It's been in there for longer than I wanted. I should be doing this about every 4 days with this particular hive. Now, this particular hive that I have, which was the one I got in 2024 April. Now that one survived the whole year, barely. And the only reason why it survived is because of what I'm doing right now. I had four other hives before that. Every single one of them died from the Varroa mite infection, mostly DWV, right? Deformed winged virus, and so they all four of those hives perished. And so when I got this one in 24 in April, I decided once I get to a certain point and I start to see a certain type of thing going on in the hive, I'm going to have to use chemicals. So come, I think it was end of July, 1st of August of last year, I noticed that my hive was in big trouble. So what I did is I came up with this, do a Bob Ross, put a little stream right here, and I just put a pine tree there, some little bushes, some flowers. Did I ever paint Bob Ross pictures? Yes, I did. Do a little circle, that way it creates some mounds. The bromites have a hard time crawling over anything. Not only that, when they crawl over those little mounds, they really get themselves heavy into the oil. Okay, so Yeah, Bob Ross. I watched I watched that guy for 15 years. The whole 15 years, I had no idea that he was already passed away. Whoa, talk about keeping things secret. That was like crazy. Oh my gosh. Gone for 16 years. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to go outside here in a minute. And so what I do is I take this screen. It's a pretty fine screen. Some folks take that, flower strainer thing. That makes too much noise. Bees come at me when I do that. Grind. They're flying around my hands. I'm going, okay. So when I come with this is silent. Because, when you're doing this around bees, silence is golden. I had one I was tapping, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. I had a metal thing, and somehow it got stuck, and I started to tap it. I didn't see the bee myself. I saw it on the rerun, but a bee had come right up to where I was tapping and stung me right on my pinky. The noise got her attraction, right? So now I just gently pour it in there and I shake it, right? It's been okay since then, right? So that's how I'm going to deliver the shake, right? So I'll take you out there and show you how I do this. And there's another comment that I'm going to make about the beehive that I'm going to do this with. The beehive that I'm going to do this with is the queen is a farm animal, raised to be a farm animal for mass production. The thing about having a hive that is bred for mass production is the hive is going to explode in the spring, and along with the drones that the queen's going to make, and you're going to have an explosion of Varroa mites. It's just 1 + 1, just going into the analytics of it, thinking about it in a critical way. It's going to explode. And that's happened to all 4 of my previous hives, which is what killed them. I bought my bee packages from a bee farm. That queen is a mass producer. 24/7, that girl pumped out hives. So when I got her in April of 2024, not 1 month have I seen her break for 1 day. I seen swarmed navigational flights coming out every day around 4 o'clock. I go, I think I'll go watch my swarm. It's almost 4. I'll go watch the navigational flight because I like watching that. And so I'd go out there, and sure enough, they're in their navigational flight. It usually starts in between 4:30 and 5 is when my navigational flights. Okay, so that hive, I want it to die. I do not want a bee, a queen, that is not organic. What does that mean? That means she's bred to mass produce, to grow hives quickly for mass selling of bee packages. Just like when we breed certain dogs or something for certain tasks, like, retrievers and different things, right? Herding sheep. Well, bees also have certain characteristics, right? Just the way it is, right? So I don't want a bee farm queen or a bee farm hive. What I want is an organic, natural, from nature hive. And that's what I want to invest my time in and my resources in, right? I want this hive to be purely nature, but I don't have to do nothing to it. Nothing. That's what I want. And in mid-May of this year, that's what I got. And I caught it naturally, organically. I have this forest in my backyard where woodpeckers peck these holes in these big monstrous trees, and the bees go in there and they clean it all out, and they make themselves that's right, a beehive in the tree. And they live there naturally, right? In nature. And so I watched that swarm come into my peach tree. I baited a nuke, and I put it in my peach tree, and I was sitting there watching my hive, because that's what I do when I'm taking breaks. I do a lot of physical stuff every day, a lot of projects. And I was sitting there chilling, and I seen a bunch of bees coming up to that baited nuke in my peach tree, which was probably about 6 feet away from me at the time. And I saw a bunch of bees going in there, and I heard something. I looked to my right, and I seen it coming right here, right to where I was sitting. This swarm was coming. It looked like a Frosty the Snowman. It had a small head in front and a much bigger one, second one behind that one, and then a massive one behind it. It looked just like Frosty, coming my way. And it wasn't even Christmas. So, of course, I got up immediately, and within seconds, that whole cove where I got my beehive, that whole cove was inundated. My chair where I was just sitting, packed with bees, right? So what I did is I took that beehive and I've observed that queen, what she's been doing since mid-May. So that's been about 4 months. And this queen is doing exactly what she was bred to do for millions and millions of years, right? What they do is a natural hive, right? Organic one, one from nature. They know how to manage the hive, right? The queen will lay for a week or so, and she'll stop for a couple of weeks. There's some more eggs. So what she's doing is she's getting that hive to a certain girth, right, size, and she's maintaining it. She's maintaining that size, which is perfect. That's how it's supposed to be, right? And so now I do have an organic hive, and I don't have to do nothing to it. It takes care of itself. In fact, last night I put in a jar of sugar syrup that I made, and I put it in that hive because I want them to be able to store plenty of honey for the winter, right? Because that way I don't have to feed them either, right? Because typically the hive that my first hive that I'm still struggling to keep alive, I fed them all winter because there was just too many when they went in. Even when I saved them, but there were still too many. There were still too many bees going into winter. So there was a massive die-off. So I saw about one day there was no bees. Next day there was like 10,000 in front of the hive, dead and dying. And about 2 months later, the same thing happened. There was, even though I was mountain feeding, they had lots of food. They just still didn't feel like there was enough food for the quantity that they had in there. So there was another 10,000 or so die off a couple months after the first one. And that hive survived, but man, that has been so much work to keep that hive alive. That farmed beehive, it's crazy what I have to do on a weekly basis just to keep it from dying. So when it comes spring, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch that farm animal queen, and I'm going to, well, first I'm going to create some queens. I've got these little nuke boxes, little small ones. I'm going to create a bunch of queens, and I'll have those set up and ready to, once they come out and go out and get, well, I may not wait until they go out and get mated. I'll decide at the time, go with the instincts, right? And then I'm going to set up probably about 6 total beehives that are nature, not farm queens, not farm hive, right? And I won't have to manage these doggone things. This swarm I caught, 4 months now, I've done nothing to that hive. I've sprinkled some powdered sugar in there, but only out of habit. Oh, I'm sugar shaking this devastated hive. I'll just do this one too. And that's the reason why I've sugar shaked the organic hive. The swarm I caught. That's it. Just, I'm doing this one, might as well do that one. No, I'm not going to do that anymore. So what I'm doing is I'm giving them some sugar syrup. They're going to build up probably about three frames of honey, maybe 4, because I built a 10 frame. The hive that they're in I built from scrap wood. So, but it's all, the dimensions are all correct. They don't have that, so none of those have that plastic panel. So what I did is I built the frames, and then I put a little comb in the corners, and they built their comb out from those corners. I pulled it out, and it was just so perfect looking. They know what they're doing in nature, right? No plastic panels, and they built those combs out so perfectly. It started right where I put that initial honey, squares up there in the corner. They started right from there, and they built that stuff right all the way down to the bottom. I gave them a starting point, and they took it from there. And so I'm hoping that they'll have maybe 5 to 6 frames of honey going into the winter. 5 or 6 frames of honey will get them through the winter without me having to do what's called mountain feeding. Because that's my choice, is mountain feeding. What I do is I'll take some sugar and sprinkle it on the top panel above the cover, and spray it with some water, and then sprinkle some more, and then spray it with some water until it starts to look white or clear, and that's how I mountain fed my farm bees all winter. And so that's kind of it. So I'm gonna please subscribe, thumbs up, ring the bell. I appreciate that. This is a baby channel, and I'll know where it is a couple of years from now. So I'm gonna take you outside, and I'll see you there.